All right, guys. So Jim Acosta, who has a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome, essentially gets mad at Andrew Yang and goes off on Andrew Yang in this interview on CNN. Now, Andrew Yang is doing a media tour because he has a new book called Forward, I believe, and he's also starting a new political party, right? Andrew Yang has basically declared a war on the two-party system in the United States. Now, let me say this about Yang, right? There's no other political figure, in my opinion, that has a better grasp on the issues that plague our society than Andrew Yang, right? It's not even close, to be quite honest with you. Now, that's just my opinion. Do I agree with his solutions? No, right? A lot of his solutions I don't necessarily agree with, but I do think the man really does understand the problems, right? And on his campaign trail, he talked about automation, right? And the effect that, big tech is going to have on people losing their jobs, right? And why workers are becoming discontent with technological advancement. He also talked about how working class Americans have become disillusioned from shipping jobs overseas, right? To Asia. Okay. I mean, he used some similar talking points that Trump used in 2016 that I think really is what made Trump popular. And I believe that a lot of politicians fail to address these core issues in a substantive way, right? They even fail to call them out or to recognize that it's actually a problem, right? And this problem, right, that Yang is currently tackling is the problem of political parties, right? Our two-party system, which overall, in my opinion, guys, I tend to agree with George Washington in regards to his opinions and views on political parties, right? I think political parties really just divide people, and they create perverse incentives for the people who represent those parties, right? They put the party's interests over the people's interests, right? They seek to divide and conquer, okay? And I think what's worse than political parties is having a two-party system where people literally have nowhere to go if they become disillusioned with one party, right? And that's currently what's happening in America, guys, right? We've seen both parties to a certain extent be pushed to their extremes because there's only two options, right? Which leaves a lot of people essentially leaving their parties and going independent, which is why most people in this country are independent. In my opinion, I don't think that most people are particularly fond of their parties, right? I think that they only vote for their party partially because they hate the other party, right? The opposite party. And that's the best option for them, right? They don't have any other option. And I believe that Yang probably found out the hard way how this machine works and how this incentive structure works by running for president in the Democrat primary and then running for mayor of New York City, right? Competing against Democrats. He tried to be a Democrat insider, and they weren't really feeling him that much, right? They were not really feeling him that much. Now, I really do believe that we need to get rid of this two-party system. I actually really do believe that, right? Which is why I low-key was hoping that Trump would start a new party, and I was hoping that AOC and the progressives at the same time would start a new party. That way we have a four-party system that I think would be competitive. I was literally hoping that would happen, okay? But unfortunately it didn't, and we're still stuck with this two-party system that I think is old, antiquated, and really goes against the vision of the first president of the United States, George Washington. So Yang is taking on this issue by starting a third party, and Jim Acosta literally shows his Trump derangement syndrome in the first question of this interview, essentially scolding Yang for starting a third party because he thinks it's going to take away votes from the Democrats and help Trump get elected. Take a look.
You know what the critics are saying, that this is a bit of sour grapes. You lost in the presidential race, in the primary there and up in New York City, and that's why you're starting this third party, the Forward Party, which, as you know, could hurt Democrats and help Trump. What do you say to those criticisms?
Jim, right now we can sense that polarization is getting worse and worse. Political stress is literally at civil war levels. And unfortunately, the incentives are all driving us in that direction. So what we need to do is actually fix the system that is driving us crazy and pitting us against each other by opening up the primaries and installing ranked choice voting in states around the country. And because this needs to happen in red and blue states alike, it's much more likely to be successful if it's being led by someone who's a political independent.
But I remember all too well, Andrew, your motto that was on your lapel pin, math, make America think harder. I mean, if you do the math, let's say you run for president in 2024, you would likely cut into the support for a Democratic contender. And if Donald Trump is running on the Republican ticket, you would help make him president again.
First, we should be focused on 2022. There's a lot of great work that can be done. But for people who are concerned about what's called the spoiler effect, which you just described, Jim, what we need is a system that allows different points of view to emerge. If you had ranked choice voting, first you completely get rid of the spoiler effect, so that's exactly where we should go.
All right, guys. So regardless of whether or not you agree with Andrew Yang's solution, okay, regarding ranked choice voting and open primaries, as you can see, Jim Acosta is not concerned about what Yang's main point is, right? Which is political polarization, right? He's not concerned about that. He doesn't care about that. Matter of fact, he contributes to that, okay? Because his only thing throughout this whole interview is, well, you know, that guy Trump, you starting this is going to take away votes for them Democrats, right? You know that this is what this is going to do. And Yang is like, well, the whole point is to get rid of that system, right? To get rid of that system that Jim Acosta is literally trying to promote, right? Which is this tribal mentality that we have over two parties, right? If you are hurting one party, then you are helping the opposite party, right? That's literally Jim Acosta's attitude, and that's exactly what Andrew Yang is preaching against. It's actually hilarious to see this happen in this interview, right? As this guy right here, he literally does not back down from this, right? He's internally pissed, right? He's internally flipping out because he sees Andrew Yang as a threat to the Democrat Party, right? So he goes on to actually ask Andrew Yang about an interview that Yang did recently with Tucker Carlson. And this is when he really starts to kind of go off the rails.
I want to ask you, Andrew, because you're talking about fixing the system and you're talking about, you know, bringing in better people into the political process. But I have to ask you about an interview that you did with Tucker Carlson recently. It took a bizarre turn when Tucker suddenly brought up the Unabomber. I want to play that and ask you about this on the other side.
Ted Kaczynski, I have to say, has written very convincingly on this, the Unabomber. Bad person, but a smart analysis, I think, of the way systems work. And his argument is that large organizations over time morph into purely self-preservation projects. Like a big system in the end protects itself, and that's kind of all it does. So our two-party system is certainly in that category. There are so many barriers to starting a viable third party. It hasn't been done. Why can you do it?
I'd love to go into the history and background a bit, which you probably know better than I do.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, I just have to ask, I mean, Tucker Carlson, let's just say he's just a bad person, and he represents so much of what is wrong in television news these days. You know this all too well. He spouts off white nationalist talking points, and so why would you even?
Bruh, you hear what Jim Acosta said. You see what he's doing here. He said, Yang, you know all too well. You know that Tucker Carlson is a white nationalist, right? You know he's white nationalist. And Yang is just sitting there looking like, this is literally what I'm trying to get away from, right? That's literally what Yang is probably thinking. Again, what's hilarious about this is the fact that, again, Jim Acosta is not actually listening to what Yang is saying. What he's focused on is what this third party might help Trump get elected again. It is bad for the Democrats. It's bad for the two-party system, right? That's what he's thinking about because he's a Democrat actor, right? So he goes and he smears Tucker Carlson because Tucker Carlson brought up the Unabomber thing. And if you guys don't know about the whole Unabomber thing, it was a guy named Ted Kaczynski who over a course of about 20 years, I think it was 1978 to 1995, killed 3 people and injured 23 others in a bombing campaign, right? In which he was doing this because he's opposed to modern technology. He's wrote about how the Industrial Revolution is bad and how technology has basically poisoned our society. And he essentially argues for a nature-centered form of anarchism, right? As a replacement for what our current society is. Okay, so that's just a long story short in terms of who he is. Now, Tucker obviously has read about some of the guy's ideas, okay, and that triggers Jim Acosta, okay, because Jim Acosta doesn't read any other people's ideas, right? He doesn't have a diverse point of view, which I will say about Tucker. People can say what they want about Tucker. The man has a real populist streak, right? He's not as far right as people want to make him out to be, right? He actually has advocated for things that a lot of people on the left can agree with, but they can never hear that because all they see is, well, he's a white nationalist, right? Because he has certain views on immigration. It's really ridiculous. But again, you can see how mad Jim Acosta is simply because Andrew Yang engaged in a conversation with somebody that's on the other side of him, which is exactly what Andrew Yang is talking about is the problem with this country. It ain't people like Tucker Carlson that are willing to engage with people that disagree with him. It's actually people like Jim Acosta who is unwilling to engage with people that disagree with him.
Even go on his show, and why didn't you go after him when he's citing the Unabomber and talking, I mean, just crazy stuff?
One of the things we have to do, Jim, is try and take the temperature of the country down. And the only way to do that is to reach out to people where they are. As you know, Tucker commands a massive audience.
Look how mad this man is. Look how mad he is. He pissed because he's saying exactly what Jim Acosta does not want to hear, because Jim Acosta is essentially turning up the temperature. He said, why do you go on Tucker Carlson's show? You can't do that. And why didn't you say anything about the fact that he cited some of the ideas of the Unabomber, right? Just flat out polarizing rhetoric coming from Jim Acosta, okay? Obviously, Tucker said that the Unabomber was a bad guy, right? Everybody knows that he's a bad guy, okay? But he's like, listen, here's some of his ideas. Here are some of the things that he talked about that, you know, outside of him killing folks that, hey, he might have some legitimate points on, right? But, you know, for whatever reason, that nuance, Jim Acosta can't get it, okay? So he's pissed. He's pissed right now.
And if you wanted to try to build a unifying popular movement that does call attention to the fact that our system's not working really for anyone, you know, you have to, again, reach out. And that's what I was doing on that show. I mean, the goal is...
He can't stand it. He can't stand it. Jim Acosta is so mad. He's so mad, bro. I guarantee you. Bro. Somebody get this dude a chill pill, dude. Andrew Yang says, yeah, you got to reach out to the other side. You got to go talk to people that you don't agree with. He can't grasp that concept. He just can't.
To have Republicans who are discontent to channel their discontent in a positive way. And right now, in my view, it's not going in a positive direction. I'd like to help change that.
And you think you could bring some of Tucker's viewers into the Forward Party? I mean, is that what you were trying to do there?
Are you trying to bring the white supremacists into your party? That's essentially what Jim Acosta is thinking, right? Obviously, I'm saying that as what he's thinking. But, you know, again, that's his ideology, right? You can see how much of a hack this man is, right? Oh my God, do you really want people like that to be a part of your party? Of course, Yang wants people, as many people as he can, to be a part of his party. That's a stupid question. See, and that's the problem with the mainstream media. They're like, you can't associate with those people. Those people are bad. Those people are evil, right? You can't, so you can't agree with them on anything, right? Even if you do have some common ideas, even if you do have some things that you both fundamentally agree with, no. Don't engage with conversation with those people, right? You don't want those people to be a part of your movement. Jim Acosta is a representation of what's wrong with America and their media, right? Again, say what you want about Tuck. Tuck's willing to bring people on the other side on his show. Jim Acosta is not. He's not willing to engage with people on the other side. And this interview right here really demonstrates how much he hates the idea of engaging with somebody that thinks differently than he does.
Trying to do there?
I had a volunteer, Carrie Ann, who actually said that she'd been helping my campaigns for the last couple of years, and her Republican father had never taken an interest. And then I was on Tucker's program, and all of a sudden he calls Carrie Ann and is like, hey, tell me more. And I think that's the only way we're going to get through this time. That we sense that we're teetering towards some version of a new civil war and political violence. And unfortunately, the incentives are going to make that more likely, not less likely over time, unless we have a dramatic shift in dynamic. And that's what I'm trying to provide with the Forward Party. It's going to involve reaching out to Americans of every political alignment.
All right, Andrew Yang, there's so much more we could talk about. Maybe we can get you back on another time. But once
Jim Acosta's salty, bro. He's salty. He's so salty, bro. Oh, man. But yeah, guys, like I said, you can see firsthand. I mean, these people right at CNN, like, they're hacks. They have no interest in political debate. They have no interest in trying to move the country forward in a way. Now, whether or not you agree that Andrew Yang is the man for the job or if we should get rid of the two-party system, I get it, whether if you don't necessarily agree with it. But I think we should all be able to agree that it is a good thing for both sides to talk to each other and to challenge each other's ideas, right? You don't want to create an echo chamber where certain groups are not a part of the conversation, right? That really only draws more polarization, and that's what Andrew Yang is trying to address. And as you can see right there in the interview, Jim Acosta is a part of the problem. He's a part of the issue, right? Because his Trump derangement syndrome, it clouds his vision and his judgment. And also it clouds his ability to be unbiased, right? It clouds his ability to actually do his job and be a objective journalist, right? He can't do it. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.